Michael B.Jordan is reportedly talking about how Lori Harvey's mother, Marjorie Harvey, is a dangerous woman who manipulates and controls her entire family in addition to his nasty split from Lori Harvey. I was able to recognize signals fairly quickly, register them, give them time to sink in, and then go on. Do what needs to be done now. The Harvey family isn't as wonderful as they want to represent themselves, and MJ apparently thinks that he escaped harm with Lori. Marjorie, Lori's mother, may also have had a hand in convincing Lori to break up with Michael. Give yourself only to your husband, do not give yourself to anybody else. They will wait on you if they truly care about you and if they love you. Others, though, are happy that MJ is finally telling the whole story about Marjorie. Others have criticized him for continuing to bring up their breakup. What, though, did MJ actually say about Marjorie Harvey? Does he genuinely believe she poses a threat? I now have stories. I had to learn how to narrate these tales without using any names. Okay. Michael B. Jordan and Lori Harvey split up about a year ago. MJ isn't ready to date yet since, according to reports, he experienced serious trust issues after becoming connected with Lori and her family, whilst Lori has moved on with Damson Idris. Man, it was depressing there. I merely sort of isolated myself. In an interview with Gayle King around 3 months ago, MJ first spoke out about the separation, and he appeared pleased to be out of the situation. However, you've experienced. How do you think about and handle a split like that, one that is very public? I mean, I think for me, it's just that, I was fortunate enough to have a lot of work, and I'm a firm believer that, what's for you is for you, so coming out of, that situation, not to give it any energy and kind of move from that is, it was an experience for me to grow, and learn right here along the way. Michael, I'm currently in my glow. This path is mine. You see, this is my year, There is a lot happening. And while Michael withheld specifics of what made him realize Lori wasn't the one, we are now hearing that it may have something to do with Marjorie, Lori's mother, and her authoritarian tendencies. Marjorie is training Lori to be cold and calculating when it comes to dating, according to individuals close to the Harvey family. And this shouldn't be a surprise to you if you are familiar with Marjorie's past. Marjorie Harvey enjoys displaying her opulent lifestyle on social media these days and socializing with celebrities and billionaires. But before meeting her, Steve, Marjorie's life was far different from the sparkle and glamour she now enjoys. Steve claims that Marjorie and he fell in love when they first met in 1990 at a comedy club in Memphis at first glance. I arrived late as a result. I followed my girlfriend down the front steps. We were seated in this area up front, close to the stage. We were therefore seated here. Here was the stage. He is hence silent. He simply stares at me non-stop. So, in order for the show to continue, I'm waiting for him to include me in it. He thus continued to be silent while gazing at me. Everyone in the club is now focusing on me. Finally realizing that he needed to say something, he did so. "Oh, I'm sorry, I have no idea who this is, but I'm going to marry her," he said. They clicked right away. However, they parted ways after a few weeks of dating. Additionally, Steve later suggested that Marjorie departed because of his poor financial situation at the time. But when they got back in touch in 2005, Steve had just finished filming an episode of his sitcom The Steve Harvey Show. Marjorie made the decision to give him another go. However, Steve had just divorced Mary Shackelford from his second marriage, and Mary later said that Steve had cheated on her with Marjorie while they were still together. When I consider how swiftly he advanced from Marjorie to me, those were disturbing. And to make matters worse, Steve took Winton, the son of Steve and Mary, with him. Additionally, Mary claims that Steve manipulated the court and turned Winton against her, leaving her with nothing. He abducted my Winton, took away my Winton. He had me evicted from our home and thrown out after turning my kid against me. All the enterprises, money, and automobiles. I was depressed and in a bad place at the time. He moved everything about. He twisted everyone and everything against me, including the courts. However, it's generally accepted that Marjorie, not Steve, was behind this deception. She orchestrated everything and persuaded Steve to cut off all communication with his ex-wife. Additionally, Marjorie apparently gave Steve instructions to portray Mary as crazy in the media, and Steve completely gaslighted her by charging that she was being vengeful and harming their son. The sad part about this is that my wife and kids had to take drugs to participate. You know, if you want to be vengeful, just shoot it straight at me. However, my kid is entering the room quietly, and it is also a private matter. Why would you do this, then? However, despite Steve and Marjorie's best efforts to change the story, fans immediately sided with Mary, turning Marjorie into one of the most dislikable Hollywood wives. Mary recently exposed Marjorie for manipulating her and asserted that Marjorie was aggressively sabotaging her relationship with Winton. As a mother, I am aware that if I ever found myself in charge of someone else's child, I would make sure that they had a positive relationship with the child. However, I fail to understand how Marjorie in particular can pose as a mother to her own children while purposefully attempting to harm my bond with my kid. I don't really understand that since, personally, even if it were a case of personal vendetta, who hurt whom? Marjorie did other questionable things before changing her name to Mrs. Harvey, though. You see, Marjorie had been married twice before she met Steve. Marjorie married drug lord Jim Townsend in her first marriage, and it is said that she participated in her husband's illicit business transactions. According to a number of accounts, the FBI and DEA began an investigation into Marjorie and informed Jim that Marjorie would be arrested if he didn't help them out because they had strong evidence of her own unlawful actions. After Jim decided to help with the law enforcement, he was ultimately charged with trying to purchase 40 kilograms of cocaine. Prior to being pardoned by President Obama in 2017, he had been given a life sentence and had served 26 years of that term. Marjorie, meantime, was able to avoid prosecution and divorced Jim before he had served more than 5 years of his term. However, as soon as Marjorie divorced Jim, she began seeing Darnell Woods, who just so happened to be Jim's cousin and a heroin dealer. Nevertheless, Marjorie persisted in choosing to wed Darnell despite everything. They welcomed 3 children together before getting married somewhere in the early 2000s. And Lori, Jason Morgan. Now, you're not the only one who may be perplexed by the timeline. Due to the fact that Marjorie and Steve assert to have first met in the late 1990s, briefly date, and then reunite in 2005. So it appears that Steve and Marjorie both cheated on their partners by seeing each other. Anyway, Marjorie immediately dumped Darnell after she reconnected with Steve and saw that he was headed for stardom. Darnell was subsequently detained, and it is said that he is still behind bars. In June 2007, Steve and Marjorie got married, and Steve adopted Marjorie's 3 kids, Jason, Lori, and Morgan. Along with having twin girls, Brandy and Carly, a son, Broderick, and a son, Winton, with his previous wife, Mary, Steve also has 4 biological children of his own. Nowadays, Steve and Marjorie enjoyed sharing relationship tips and sharing stories about their mixed family. It's been widely assumed, though, that this family is considerably more dysfunctional than it appears to be. One fan told me when I was 25 that people are angry with her because she won't accept what they would. Let's hear your opinions on Marjorie Harvey, though. Do you believe she played a role in Lori and MJ's breakup? Did Lori help you avoid a bullet? Post a comment below. And watch this video right after that.